I'll think I'm going to.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the Cultural Center. I'm going to begin with a few housekeeping details. At the back of the room is a sign-up sheet if you'd like to receive an emailed copy of this presentation. And the EPB is filming the program. And as soon as I hear when it will be aired, I will put it on our Facebook page. Bathrooms are across the hall, and the military exhibit is open upstairs. It's located at the top of the stairs. We're currently raising funds to expand to the third floor with exhibits and to update our technology. We've had a challenge of $10,000, an anonymous challenge if we can raise $10,000. Right now we're at $3,000. So we appreciate any donations. And from now through the holidays, we're gathering photos for our memory tree. The theme this year for our memory tree is the Vietnam era veterans. After the holidays, the photos will be compiled into a notebook, and they'll be made available in our military section upstairs. So if you are a Vietnam era veteran, or you know of someone who is or has been, bring those photos in, and we will put them on the tree to begin with, and then they will go in a notebook for all to look at. Tonight we're co-hosting this event with Barren County Historical Society, and they wanted me to let the Historical Society people know that their next meeting will be the fourth Saturday in January here at the Cultural Center. Is there a time?
It's 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock on Saturday. Okay. We are in for a treat. Tommy Jackson will be presenting a program on 7 generals from this region. Tommy has had a long-standing interest in military and has heard stories of military most of his life. In addition, he's recently been doing some research here that I've seen about military heritage of this region, and he's going to share that tonight with us. So please welcome Tommy Jackson.
Can everyone hear me okay? Microphones and I don't usually go together, so if you can't hear me, let me know. We'll turn it up a little bit. Living out at Roseville many years ago, there was an old black church out there, and they would pass the offering plate, and we may do that here in a moment, but they'd pass it around before some preachers started preaching. They'd go see how much was in the plate. If it wasn't enough, he'd send it back out. So we may need to do that, Sherry. But anyway, thank you all for having me, and thank the Historical Society and all of you for being here tonight. Hopefully, I know there's a lot of military people here. Stand up if you were in the military at any time. Just give them a hand. We thank you for your service. What about any of the ladies here? Are you mothers or service people or spouses? Any of you? So, yeah, there's a couple, so thank you all over the years that you served as well as the men did when they were in service. Tonight, we're going to talk about 7 generals from Barren County and then other generals from this area. Also about some of the activities that's happened here in Barren County, particularly during the Civil War here. And then we're going to, in researching, you can, Wayne Davis, you can start down one path and go 10 different ways and find out some information you didn't know about, and that's what I've done in researching. Here in Glasgow, Marion County, there's a tremendous amount of people that's made a difference in the world. And Sam Terry, a few years ago, I asked him to speak to our Kiwanis Club, and there's Sam now. Sam, I'm talking about you. And asked Sam to speak to our Kiwanis Club about 8 or 10 people from Barren County that all citizens should know. And a few days he called me back and said, I've sat down and worked on a list. I've come up with over 50 people in Barren County that Barren County should know about. So there's a lot of people here that people don't know about, and I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 here as we get into the program today. And their names are Cheeks. Does anyone know any Cheeks that used to live here? And so we'll talk about them. It's an amazing story what they did, and very few people in Glasgow know about it. David Dick, several years ago, CBS reporter, he wrote an article about Glasgow, and he says it's the biggest little town in Kentucky with all the people that's come out of Glasgow. General Daugherty being one, Diane Sawyer, Julian Goodman, Billy Vaughn, and but he was amazed, he said, when he started looking into the history of Barren County. So there's a lot of people that maybe outside of Barren County recognizes who some of these people are that we don't know about, but we'll share 3 of those citizens with you today. Let me plug a couple of people here that I've relied on them in this research, and one is Perry Brantley. Perry, hold your hand up. He's here, but if anyone needs to know anything about Civil War, Perry is an expert on it. He has just a wonderful filing cabinet down there that's full of people's names, and he's got pictures of when we started looking at it, Terry and my ancestors. He had pictures of something that we didn't have and told about the battles they were in. So if any of you have any Civil War relatives that you don't know a lot about, call Perry, and he's told me he'd be glad to share that with you. Also, Sam, that he's here now, and if you don't follow Sam on the Facebook, I'm not into Facebook, but I figure it out occasionally. I'll look up what Sam has there, but he has about 10,000 followers on Facebook. That it's Sam Terry's Kentucky. If any of you looked at that, and he just has wonderful stories about Kentucky, a lot of it about Barren County. And he's also on radio with Bill Goodman. All of you remember Bill Goodman from Glasgow, and he has a show there called Sam, he called me this afternoon and told me I've lost the name of this radio program. Think History, and he's on during the week, he and Bill Goodman, and you can find that on the radio station weku.com. So Sam will, you can listen to him and find out a lot of history of what's going on. In this research, and you guys that does a lot of it, and ladies, you head down one path, and a lot of times 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4. 2 plus 2 equals 3. And so there's a lot of things you'll find out that what you thought was right is not right. And so in my research and some of these items that I've looked up, there's some things with relatives that are not correct. So sometimes you just have to figure it out the best you can and go with it, and hopefully you'll find out someday what the actual answer was. Again, you never know what you're going to find out. I was doing some research on a grandfather that was in the Civil War, and or I thought was in the Civil War. Started tracing him down, and he was my 5th grandfather. My next door neighbor is Gary Foster. Come to find out, he was Gary's 6th grandfather. So we were cousins, been neighbors for 25 years, and didn't know we were related. So I call him Cuz now. So but anyway, so you find out a lot of things you surprises you and you don't know about. Tonight we're going to probably go about 40-45 minutes, take a short break, go to the restroom if we need to, come back, 20 minutes to close it up, so about an hour and a half is about how long we're going to go. If you want to look at some of the research that I did, here are some books. It's got a lot of military, a lot of Civil War information in it. A lot of it have Barren County heritage, I guess, and that has a great amount of information in it. Here's another book. I think it's sold out, Cherry, but Barren County, Kentucky, History and Families. Lots of information there. My brother, I won't thank him, a lot of this information I got from him, but this is his military heritage that he prepared going back to 1488. And so there's a lot of information. I'm using some of that today. And I'll let you know a little bit about some of my information that I've been working on. And so I would recommend, suggest anyone that has a look around. There's not a lot of young people in this group today, and I wished I would have asked about a lot of this information back when I was young, so we could have recorded it. And but now then, a lot of those people, our grandparents that had all that information we heard about Mitchell, are gone. We've lost all of that. So encourage your children, grandchildren to pick up and learn about it. My two boys, they're not interested in it. You can talk to them about this, and they don't have a lot of interest. Another book here that the Orphan Brigade. This is written by Ed Porter Thomason, who was from Center, Kentucky. He was in the Civil War. This has got, I guess, everyone that was in the Orphan Brigade name in here. It tells about where they served. Tells about the battles they were in. It tells a lot about where they were from. Roseville, there's a lot of them from Roseville where I'm from. And so those are some resources there that you can look and find out about. Let me pass these out. A lot of information you can get is pretty simple to find. How many here use Find a Grave? Okay, a lot of you do, but several of you don't. But pass that around and let people look at that. Find a Grave has a lot of information in there. You can, that's my dad, and you can start clicking into his dad and mother. That'll take you to their dad, granddads and mothers, and I've gone back to as far as 1750 on looking up people. So there's a lot of information. It's not always exactly right. We talked, someone, I think it's Marvin, we talked about tonight. Most of that information you may not know, but some of it is not true. Anybody can go in there and change that information, so you need to be careful on what you're looking at sometime. But a lot of those Find a Grave will have military information, have obituaries in there for someone back in the 1800s. But it's a good resource to use and find out about your ancestors. Okay, let's talk a little bit about tonight's program. As Sherry said, I've been interested in the military for a long time. Many of you here were in the 623rd Field Artillery Unit in Glasgow. I was in there, and it's hard to imagine it's been 55 years when I joined, so it's time passes by, but there's a lot of information that's come out of that. And but I guess that's where my military interest started back in those days. But why am I interested in it? Well, patriotism, number one, I think is, Webster defines that as love for one's country. So patriotism today is wandering, I think, just looking at the country where we're at and where we're going. I don't see a lot of patriotism as we used to have. Our ancestors. This is a resource I've been working on now for a little while, but this is my ancestors' military career, and I have about 4 pages here, and a lot of this came from Terry, my brother, but in here I've identified 65 ancestors who served in the military, and Out of those 65, 45 of them were volunteers. So that's something that I'm real proud of being volunteers rather than being drafted. Out of those 65, there's 4 was killed in battle, 2 were prisoners of war, and 2 received the Purple Heart. So we've had a lot of ancestors that's been involved in battles. Also, another reason of my interest is we had 12 grandfathers who participated in the Revolutionary War. There were 8 who fought, 4 of them officers of the Continental Army, and 4 who were patriots. 4 of them relocated here to Barren County, is that correct? And, with land grants, 5, and came here from up east and relocated here. Glasgow, Barren County has certainly a rich heritage of recognizing and serving the military. There are a lot of veterans groups here in Barren County. I started making a list of them. I came up with over 10 veterans groups who support our local veterans here. And they do that through the Veterans Day Parade, memorial services, and one of them, I'll give a shout out to, is our DAV Chapter 20. I was talking to one of those gentlemen the other day, and they've already done over 100 funerals this year. So they, the service that they provide is just wonderful. Here in Barren County, a lot of people don't know this, but we've had 2 Congressional of Honor recipients. One of them we know is Sergeant Bush during World War II. Another one was Sergeant Day back in the 1870s in some Indian rebellions that they had out in Montana, and Sergeant William Day. I didn't know that until I started researching. And also the Congressional, or the Confederate Medal of Honor has been awarded to 8 people from Barren County. There was 4 in Shiloh and 4 in Stones River. And if you go upstairs, if you've been up there, those names are on the board up there that you can read about what happened in their service. But out of the 8, 5 of them were killed in action during those battles at Stones River and Shiloh. And then another thing that I'm proud of is Wayne and Davis and Terry are here, but they were in my graduating class. Jim Hale, our Jim back there, came in, and our graduating class, Ross Tracy, only had 16 boys in our class, and out of those 16, 9 were in the military, which is very high. 3 of them are now deceased, so I think that's something to be proud of, and when you see your fellow classmates serving in the military. Why am I interested in generals? Terry provided me a lot of these things that I'm going to tell you about generals in our families, contacts or events that's happened that got me interested in generals to start looking up local generals. And our 5th grandfather, Henry Carter, crossed the Delaware River December the 25th, 1776, friend with George Washington. There was only 2,200 that made across the icy river. There was 10,000 was going across, but they didn't make it. And so there was 2,200 that crossed the Delaware, and Henry Carter was one of them. My great-great-grandfather, William Adams, rode with General John Hunt Morgan's Raiders. So he probably passed through here. They came through here at least 2 times through Glasgow, and at one time I read where that they were stopping here that General Morgan wanted to let the Barren Countyans be here at Christmas. It was during the Christmas time, and so there were several here in Barren County that rode with John Hunt Morgan. Had a cousin named Peter Borders in World War II. During the Battle of the Bulge, there was artillery fire coming in. He jumped into a foxhole. Someone jumped in on top of him. He was wondering who this guy was. when they got out, he looked at him, it was General Patton. So General Patton, I guess it was showing his rank, jumped in on top of it. I don't know what, if he'd have jumped in on top of Patton, I don't know what would have happened. But anyway, and so...
He did give him choice words before he knew who he was.
Okay.
He said he counted him some words.
Peter Barren did, okay, so what Patton tell him?
I don't know.
Also in World War II, another cousin, Earl Livesey, he was a personal bodyguard and in the honor guard for General MacArthur. And so he probably had it made during the war, someone that protected him and didn't have to go to the front line. My father, Georgie Joe Jackson, he was in World War II, but when he came home, he started working for the Department of Agriculture. And his boss was Major General Ben Butler, who was commanding general of the 100th Reserve Division in Kentucky. And Dad used to go on a summer retreat with the employees, and General Butler would be there. He had two sons our age, and so down at Harrisburg FFA camp, some of you have been down there, and so we go down there. We went 2 or 3 times and swam and played basketball with them. And then the last thing with a general, many of you might know Roland Shaw. He used to be here. He was, I think, a city manager was his title. He's my uncle, still living. He's, I believe, 91 years old, lives in Tennessee. He was battalion commander of 623rd here at Glasgow as a lieutenant colonel. They moved to Tennessee, and he couldn't get in the guard down there, but he could get in the reserves. So he joined the reserves in Tennessee and was there and promoted to colonel. And he got a call one day from headquarters and said, "We've got an opening. We want to consider you for a general." And he said, "Well, that's quite an honor." "Okay, consider me." He said, "There's some stipulations. One, you've got to move to Alabama." And he hadn't been in Tennessee with a new job very long, but he said, "No, I can't do that with a family. I don't want to move to Alabama. Just remove my name from consideration." Whether he would have got the job or not, I don't know, but he at least was considered for it until he declined the invitation. Okay, let's, of course, here in Barren County, as I mentioned, we've had 7 generals. The outlying counties, mentioned what we may call the Brad District, is 10-county area. From this area, there were 14 generals in the Civil War from this area, with 3 actual generals. One was a colonel, but he made adjutant general a little later. But there was 4, you might say, came from Barren County out of the 14. So we had a great number of generals from Barren County. How many Navy? Wayne's a Navy guy anymore. Wayne, I couldn't find any admirals around, so we came up with some generals. But but anyway, there are no admirals here. But in the history of the Army and Air Force, German immigrant Philip Koppel. A lot of stories about Philip Koppel. I won't get into them. Sam will tell you about some of them sometime. But Philip Koppel, it's an interesting story. He was a Russian Jew, a Jewish immigrant. He owned a red front store, dry goods, which was next door to George Ellis's. He married a lady from Monroe County. Her name was Irene Hardin. You all remember Roy Hardin. He had a grocery store. Okay, this was Roy's aunt that he married. Sam Green was a Polish Jewish immigrant. He had a clothing store. Started out as Green and Small on the east side of the square. He had a daughter named Nancy. She married a local guy, Jesse Reed, by the name of John Winlock from Highsville. A lot of you remember John. Nancy had a friend, close friend. Now I'm going to suppose how she met her. probably the Jewish synagogue, nearest one was in Nashville, probably. And they went down there for church. She met a young lady there. She was a Russian Jewish by the name of Dinah Shore. I remember that name, Dinah Shore. Dinah visited Glasgow with Nancy many, many times. She stayed here a lot. She sang with the Roy Holmes Orchestra in the 30s and the 40s. They were primarily, they would go to Sulphur Well in the Beulah Vista out there, but she stayed here in Glasgow a lot. The Goodwin family is not, there was another Goodwin, not Julian, Charlie, Joe, and that group. This was another large Goodwin family. Most recent Jewish families here, anybody remember Folks store over on the west side? Billy Folks, they were a Jewish family. They were on the north side. Also on the north side was Emmanuel Lapidus, Bernard's. He was there along with Berkey Sloan, his son-in-law. So those are probably the last Jewish families that we've had here as merchants. So anyway, that was real interesting. That's not any military, but I think it's something that is good to know, and the citizens here know about our Jewish community. Okay, let's go back and get into some military, Joe. You ready for a little military?
Yeah.
Got too many papers here, bear with me just a moment. In the Civil War, we've heard talk about brother against brother, relative against relative, and that happened during the Civil War, of course. General Buckner from General Buckner Sr. from Mumfordville, his closest friend was Thomas Wood. They were born the same year. They were very close friends. When the war started, General Buckner joined the Confederate. General Wood was a Union. So they were best friends. They were on the opposite side. General Buckner attended West Point along with a close friend of his, the name of U.S. Grant. They were there together and they were friends. During the first major battle, what's going on, Sandy?
Not sure.
During the first army to surrender was General Buckner. He surrendered 12,000 troops of the Confederate. Who do you think he surrendered them to? His friend, U.S. Grant. So they were not roommates, but classmates, and so when he surrendered to 12,000. Matter of fact, General Buckner surrendered the last major troops in Louisiana, West Louisiana. So he had the distinction of surrendering the first group and the last group in the Civil War. I don't know if I like that or not. I don't know whether he won any battles in between there or not. But then we have the Crittendens from Logan County. Crittenden brothers. They were George and Thomas. Thomas joined the Union Army. George joined the Confederate. So brothers joined different ones. They both were major generals. They two-star generals. They also had a brother who was a full colonel. He was in the Union Army also. So they're brother against brother. Two of my grandfathers, William Adams, served with the Confederate. Joseph Jackson served with the Union, and they fought against each other at the Battle of Shiloh. Of course, they didn't know each other at that time, but they fought against each other. And then Brigadier General John Breckinridge. He was the Vice President of the United States prior to the Civil War. Just prior to that, he was elected senator from Kentucky. And when the war started, he pledged his allegiance to the South. And he was expelled from the Senate by a vote of 36 to nothing. So they got rid of him pretty quickly. And later on, he commanded, and I'll talk about the Orphan Brigade, which was established here in Bowling Green, but a lot of people from Glasgow. Okay, just some general information here, and I found out something in looking at this that I didn't know. Congress appoints generals. They have to elect them or vote for them. In the rank, there's, of course, a 1-star general is a brigadier general, 2 stars a major general, 3 stars a lieutenant general, 4 is a general, 5 is a general of the Army. How many know that there were 6-star generals? Anybody know that? 2 people. There was 2 6-star generals in military history. The first one was General Pershing, John Pershing, who was appointed a 6-star general September 3rd, 1919. First World War was over. Congress was looking at everything and said there's one person who had more to do with the winning of the war than anyone. It was John Pershing. So they promoted him to a 6-star general. In January of 1976, there was another one appointed. What happened in 1976? Bicentennial. So they said we need to recognize someone. So George Washington was recognized, and he was promoted to a 6-star general. So we've had 2 6-star generals, and that's all something that I didn't know about. Okay. In military history, there's only been 11 5-star generals. There's none today. Let me back up there. In 4-star generals, there's only 38 slots today is allocated for a 4-star general. We have 41. That's about like the government. They can't stay in the boundaries. they just can't live by that. So there's 41 today, and I read that they're waiting till someone retires or dies to get it back down to the 38. But anyway, so the 5-star generals, there are 5 Army generals and 4 Navy. Wayne, here's your people coming in, Wayne Davis. They were appointed in late 1944. The war was over just 6-8 months later. Why did they wait till then to appoint them? Someone got the idea that the United States, they were leading most of the battles. Even they were 4-star generals. They said this is not right. Said we've got 5-star generals from England, Australia, and it doesn't seem right a 4-star general telling a 5-star general what to do. So Congress says we need to promote to 5-star generals. So they did just a few months before the war was over. But a lot of these names you know about, and the Army was, and by the way, they promoted them one-day intervals. They didn't promote them all in one day because if one of them should die or be killed, they didn't know who was going to be in charge. So they started promoting them on the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, The last one wasn't promoted until a little later, but 8 of them were promoted in consecutive days. In the Army, we had Henry Hap Arnold. That was in 44. In 1947, the Air Force was formed. Up until that time, it was the Army Air Corps. So they formed the Air Force in 1947. He became the General of the Air Force, 5-star General. Omar Bradley, all these you know, Jesse, you know all these. Dwight D. Eisenhower, Douglas MacArthur, and George Marshall. They were the 5-star generals. In the Navy, these were Rear Admirals, William Bull Halsey, Ernest King, William Leahy, and Chester Nimitz. Now, I want to share something with you here. Would you help me here? Let's start with one on each side and take one to the back. What I'm showing you there, in September the 2nd, 1945, of these 5-star generals or admirals, none of them had gotten together, maybe 2 of them, but there was 3 that got together on that day. General MacArthur, Fleet Admiral Nimitz, Fleet Admiral Halsey. They met in Tokyo Bay on that day in 1945 on the Missouri. And they were there to sign, the Japanese to sign the instrument of surrender. They did, and that instrument today is in the National Archives in Washington. General MacArthur was the presiding officer. He didn't like the Japanese. He just didn't trust them, didn't like them. He said, in this ceremony, I want it as short as we can do. I want to intimidate the Japanese as they come aboard, and I want them to demonstrate the superiority of the Allied forces. So he did. So you see those pictures there. You see the Japanese, they came aboard with top hats, white gloves, tux, tails on their tuxedos, most of them did. And so General MacArthur says, we're not dressing up. He says, we fought the Japanese in our work clothes. We'll take their surrender in our work clothes. We're not going to dress up for them. He also said when they come aboard, it was a 10-man delegation. They're Japanese, most of them were short. He said, I want the tallest sailors on the ship. When they come up, they're going to walk through our talk. They're going to have to look up to them. He said, I want them to be intimidated. And then we're going to have our ships come into Tokyo Bay. They had over 200 ships. American ships came into Tokyo Bay. They had destroyers, submarine aircraft carriers. Many of the ships came in. The Allied members had 25 more, Australia, Britain. But anyway, it showed their superiority. And then he said when the ceremony is over, he said, I'm going to fly over. I'm going to be loud and low where we can darken the skies. So when they got ready to leave, 450 fighter planes from the 3rd Fleet flew over. They came over, and 150 bombers came over, and they said it was so dark and loud you couldn't understand what was going on. As the Japanese left. It took them 23 minutes to leave. So you can see there that the planes flying over and the spot where they signed. Then the Nimitz, you see the ship there, that was named after Chester Nimitz. Barb and I was in Hawaii one year. We had the honor to go to the Missouri. We stood on the spot. There's a plaque there now where the agreement was signed. We stood on that spot. That made you real proud to be able to stand there. We went over to the Arizona Memorial at the same time. And we was watching, we knew there were ships coming in. When the Navy ships come in, Wayne, they bring them all in at once. Maybe 20 ships, aircraft carrier, and then the support ships that comes in with them. We saw a big ship coming up through there. Now, this is not the time that we took this picture, but another time. And the Nimitz came within 300 feet of where we were standing there on the dock on the Arizona Memorial. And you can see the Navy personnel was standing in parade dress in their white uniforms around the aircraft carrier and all the planes there. So that made you just real proud when you was able to witness something like that. The Nimitz at that time was the largest ship in the world, 1,200 feet long. It was over 4 football fields. Unbelievable how big the ship was. But so that's something that, looking back in my history, that I was real proud of, to be able to witness that and stand where the agreement of surrender was signed. Okay, let me talk a little bit about John Crittenden, just briefly. Jesse, you've talked about John Crittenden for a long time, I guess, in history, but John Crittenden, you know him, he was an outstanding American. He was from Logan County. He was a 4-term senator, United States Senator, 1-term United States Representative, U.S. Attorney General under 3 presidents, Governor of Kentucky. He was Speaker of the House of Kentucky House of Representatives. He died at the age of 54, had just been elected to another term. He served 54 years as a servant of the United States in all these capacities. His family legacy is unbelievable. He had 2 generals in the Civil War, sons. One son was a colonel in the Civil War. He had a grandson, Wayne, was an admiral later on. His father fought in the Revolutionary War. He was a major. He had a nephew in the Civil War, was a general. He had another nephew, was a colonel, was elected governor of Missouri after the Civil War. He had another nephew, was a mayor of Kansas City. A brother was elected governor of Arkansas. A grandson was a captain in the U.S. Army afterwards, and I want to talk about him. And then the most recent relative is Cret Llewellyn, who was Governor Brashear's lieutenant governor. She's related to him. But the young John Crittenden III, he was killed at the age of 22 after the Civil War. I believe this was in 1870. He joined up with a group of 200 and went to Montana to fight in the Battle of the Little Bighorn, to face Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. General George Custer was the leader of that. They were all killed there. And the history, brother got this on Henry Ross's trivia question. Jesse Reed, you didn't get this one, but Henry asked who was the youngest general ever. George Custer. At age 23, he was a brigadier general. The next year, at age 24, he was promoted to major general. And so that's quite a young age to be a general. In Kentucky, there have been 2 people probably were more qualified to be president than 95% of the people who's been president, who's ever run. Henry Clay and John Crittenden. Both of them were outstanding. Henry Clay wanted to be president. How many times did he run, Judge? Four times, I believe, Mitchell. He ran 4 times and was defeated every time. John Crittenden was begged to run for president many times. He turned them down. So you had 2 outstanding individuals. One wanted to be president and wasn't. The other one didn't want to be and probably would have been elected had he run. So that's a Crittenden family that's from Logan County, and they were quite a family. Okay, let's look at quickly, then let's take just a small break here. Generals in this area that you need to know about. We talked about Lieutenant General Simon Buckner. He was a Confederate officer from Munfordville. He was a three-star general. He was born in Munfordville, graduated from West Point, pledged his allegiance to the Confederate. He fought in the Mexican-American War. He was in many, many battles in the Civil War. The 1st Brigade, Kentucky, which was Orphan Brigade, fought in more battles in the Civil War than any other group. As we talked about Ulysses S. Grant being his classmate, when Ulysses S. Grant graduated from West Point, he was a poor fellow. He didn't have money to go home to Ohio. Buckner was wealthy. He had his family had lots of money. His wife owned a lot of real estate in Chicago. Buckner paid his way to go home. Grant's. When Grant died, Buckner was a pallbearer for him and paid for his funeral. Grant didn't have the money to pay for his funeral, so he paid for his funeral. Grant's wife didn't have means to support herself. Buckner took care of her for a couple of years until they found out that they could sell the memoirs of Grant. Grant kept a great history of what he was doing. They sold them for $400,000. Buckner didn't have to pay her way anymore, so she had money, but he did that. Buckner was elected governor of Kentucky in 1887. He was the adjutant general of 2 states, Kentucky and Illinois, at different times. And while he was captured the second time in Louisiana, he couldn't come back to Kentucky for a couple of years. He learned to be a newspaper man down there. When he came back, he didn't have a job. He went to work for a little paper by the name of the Courier Journal. He became the editor of the Courier Journal for a couple of years. In later years, in his 80s, he was going blind, and he lived to be 90-some years old, but they reversed that disease. But while he thought he was going blind, he memorized 4 plays of Shakespeare, total play. He could quote them all. But anyway, he died in 1914 and is buried in Frankfort with his son, General Buckner Jr. and his wife. The next one we have is this is his son, General Buckner Jr. He was also a West Point graduate. He served in the military for 39 years. He was, during the war, he was promoted commander of Okinawa and the Hawaiian Islands. Just a few weeks before the war was over, he was in Okinawa, went out to the forward line. He was out where the action was going on. And if you want to hand this he was up front. One enlisted man, when he came up, he was in his Jeep, had 3 stars on his Jeep, 3 stars on his helmet. They ran up to him, take that helmet off, take the license plate off his Jeep. The Japanese are watching us over here. And so he did. He went to the front in this picture. He went up front. It was too late. An artillery shell came in and killed him there. This picture was taken just 2 or 3 minutes before he was killed. You all are going to see that. So he was later promoted to 4-star general a few years later. So he's one of the 4-star generals. And he's the highest ranking officer to ever be killed in United States history in battle. So and he's buried there with his father also. Next is Brigadier General Dan Cherry. How many of you know Dan Cherry? He's lives in Baltimore. He's still living. He was an Air Force fighter pilot. He was a command pilot, 4,000 hours. He flew 280 combat missions in Vietnam. And he's one of the co-founders of the Aviation Heritage Park that we have in Bowling Green. And he wrote a book called My Enemy, My Friends. Anyone read that book? It was about him. He shot down a MiG MiG pilot over North Vietnam. And a few years ago, that pilot came to the States and they met. And it was a big write-up about it. It was on national news, but he wrote that book. And Dan Cherry is still living. He's the grandson of Henry Cherry, founder of Western Kentucky University. Next one is Brigadier General Kenneth Fleener. Now, if anyone's looking for a hero, you know, we see too many ball players today, rap artists that are heroes to our young people. Here's someone that needs to be a hero. General Fleener married Ann Ree from Allen County. He was from Bowling Green. He was a fighter pilot. He went to Vietnam in 1967. A few months later, he was shot down in his F-4 Phantom jet fighting the North Vietnamese. He was captured and spent 5 years in prison, enduring starvation and torture. So when he came out, he was lost a lot of weight, but he came out. If any of you remember when they released all of those prisoners, I sat up one night watching them when they were loading the plane coming back to the United States, and there were several of those prisoners came out of Hanoi Hilton. Remember that? He was one of them. So there's a hero there. The next one we have is Brigadier General John Hunt Morgan. Where did Jim go? And Madeline, did they leave? And the reason I asked where they went, Madeline St. Charles Hale, Judge Michael Hale, they're related to John Morgan Hunt. John Morgan Hunt was sort of a renegade. He was did his own thing, Sam. He didn't like to take orders. He was running out, doing different things. His family's from Lexington. He actually was born in Alabama. He went to Transylvania College, fought in many wars. He was a free spirit, wealthy. His family were wealthy. His grandfather was the first millionaire in Kentucky. He actually paid some of his followers to join his forces, the Raiders. Today, a lot of you here is in the 623rd Field Artillery. Their nickname is the Raiders, named after him. Hart County High School, their mascot, Jesse Reeves, the Raiders, that came from John Hunt Morgan. And him being from the South Confederate, it's amazing that there's a lot of buildings and bridges in Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia named after him. That's a little unusual, being a Confederate soldier, Michigan, and then named something in the northern states. But anyway, he came through Glasgow at least a couple of times. Second grandfather rode through here probably with him, and they had a Christmas raid here in Glasgow, and the Union was here, and they didn't know. They came into town. There was a few killed on each side, but they left, and then he had a long raid. He went up into Ohio and almost to Pennsylvania later on. But Madeline, Madeline St. Charles Hale, her 8th grandfather and John Hunt Morgan's 5th grandfather was the same person. So they're related. And he was killed in Greenville, Mississippi, or Tennessee. He was down there. He came out to get on his horse. One of the Union soldiers recognized him, who used to be one of his soldiers. He had left him, deserted him, joined the Union forces. He recognized John Morgan Hunt, shot him in the back and killed him. And but anyway, he was quite a character. He was again sort of roustabout in his war career. The last one I'll mention is General Joseph Ralston. That's General Daughtry's son-in-law. He was a 4-star general. He's from Hopkinsville. He was a fighter pilot in war. He was promoted. He moved up the ranks. He was the Supreme Allied Commander of European forces in NATO. That's the top guy, the top dog. He controlled all the Europe military, all the United States military in Europe, and he was the head guy. He came back and he was appointed to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who is the top generals in each service. All of them are 4-star generals. He was appointed as vice chairman. President Clinton recommended him to be full chairman. Got to checking in his background and found out that he had had an affair with a subordinate 10 years before that. And because of that, they confronted him with it, and he withdrew the nomination, his own nomination. So he was never the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was served on many boards after retiring. Lockheed Martin Air Force for aircraft builders, Timken, a big bank, URS Corporation, Cohen Group. So he's still alive today. He's about 75 years old, and he's still active in the military as far as advising. He was a Turkish advisor. He was over there with the Turkish army for many years. Now, we've run a little longer. Does anybody want to take a quick break, or you want to finish? You're not going to sleep, are you? Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and finish. We'll finish these out. Okay, the last one we're going to look at are the 7 generals. Okay, the first one is Adjutant General William Henry Jones. His father was William Henry Jones Sr. You know the family, Judge. He was born in Freedom, Kentucky in 1895. He was appointed Adjutant General, which carries a 2-star Major General status in 1927. At the age of 32, the youngest guy in the United States to ever be appointed Adjutant General at the age of 32, which was very unusual. He served in the U.S. Army in the Mexican affair, supposedly against Pancho Villa in New Mexico. He served in World War I. He was also the troop commander of our local 123rd Cavalry Regiment, which was a real active regiment here. He was commander. He went to Louisville at a young age, up there with intent. The Boy Scouts of America had just been organized in 1910. The guy that organized it was going to be in Louisville, and he was promoting the Boy Scouts. And they had a drive on. If you'll come up here and listen to us, we're gonna give you a pair of boots. Sam, is that correct? And you come up here and listen to what we got to say about our Boy Scouts, we'll give you a pair of boots. So he did. He went up there. Liked what he heard. He got his boots, I think, but he liked what he heard. He came back and organized the first Boy Scout troop in Glasgow, and later on. So he was the organizer of Boy Scouts here in Glasgow. He and his family owned the Glasgow Republic. His dad ran it. He ran it later on. His daughter, Martha Rutledge, she ran it. He still has relatives here, the Rutledge brother and sister, Philip, Paul, Jane, and Nina. They still in this area. So he's buried in Glasgow at the cemetery. And on the back table back there, if anybody's interested, I did a plan of the generals that's buried in Glasgow. Up there we have William Henry Jones, General Lewis, General Knuckles, who we're going to talk about, the family of General McFerrin, who his dad was the circuit judge here for many years. General McFerrin is not buried there, but his family is about 20 graves. And then the gravestone of Corporal Asa Lewis, who I'm going to talk about just in a moment. The next one is a major general. He was a two-star general. William Thompson Martin. He attended Center College, did he? So he graduated from Center College with a law degree. He was an attorney. He and his family moved from here at an early age. They went to Mississippi, Natchez, Mississippi. He served in many battles down there. When the war was over, he returned to Natchez, began to practice law. He was elected into the state senate down there for many years. He was a trustee of the University of Mississippi in Jefferson College. He was the founder of a large railroad company down there, the Natchez Jackson Columbus Rail Line. He owned that. He also had 11 children. And he built a mansion down there called Montegan, still there today, still open to the public. It's on the National Historic Places, 23-acre botanical gardens there. I've never been there, but if we ever get there, I'm going to go by. And he died in 1910s, interred in Natchez, Mississippi. Okay, the next one is Brigadier General John Corse McFerrin. Don't have a picture of him. His family is from Glasgow. They live up on West Washington Street. They lived in a house that's just been torn down in the last few years. Walter Wynn Davis had a house there next door where he lived. There's where he was born, in that house, and it's torn down now. But he was an Army in the military before the Civil War started. He was out in Texas and New Mexico, and he was engaged in battles out there, Palo Alto, and then a couple of other Mexican Army battles. After the war, he was appointed the chief quartermaster of the Southeast. So he was in charge of gathering up all the equipment and so forth that was left. And he was in charge of that. And he died in 1872 and is buried in Washington, D.C. And his father, Judge McFerrin, and approximately 25 members of the family are buried in Glasgow Cemetery. The next one is Joseph Knuckles. How many use the courthouse a lot? Goes into the county court clerk's office. Have you seen that picture? It hangs there in the county court clerk's office. Joseph Knuckles. He was born in Temple Hill. So you've got two generals born just a few miles of each other from Freedom and Temple Hill. And he was evidently from a wealthy family. They owned about 500 acres out there, he and the family. He was a colonel in the Civil War. He was later appointed Brigadier General of Kentucky for several years. Colonel Knuckles was on his way to being a general in the Army. He was a great leader. You read about him on what he did. He was a very disciplined person with his troops. But in the Battle of Shiloh, he was shot in the ankle and was wounded badly. He recovered went back to battle just in a month or so. In the Battle of Stones River, which was a great battle over at Murfreesboro, he was shot in the head. And then in the Battle of Chickamauga, he went there and was shot in the shoulder and just knocked him out of the war for the rest of the year. He was wounded 3 times. He came back home, ran for county court clerk, was elected 3 times as Barren County Court Clerk, and elected later as a state representative, representing this area in Frankfort. He was appointed Adjutant General in 1879. He lived on Brown Street. All of you know the Leach House. A lot of you have been in it, Linnell Leach. Been in that house, okay? There's where he lived. He owned about 15 acres there. That was the outskirts of Glasgow during that time. And he owned about 15 acres. Later, this property was sold and became today what we know as Leslie Avenue, Brown Street, Bunch Avenue, St. Mary's Court. He owned all of that. And so he died in 1896, still had many relatives here. My brother-in-law, Paul Knuckles, is a descendant of his. A lot of the Knuckles family here are descendants of Joseph Knuckles. And he was, again, someone that would have been a general probably if he hadn't been wounded. Okay, Brigadier General Joseph Lewis. He was born in Lucas, Kentucky. There's a newspaper article back there. You want to take a look, it was written in 1962, I believe. But he was born in what's called the Lewis Rogers Jewell House. And a lot of these homes that I'm talking about are described in these books here, so if you have them, you can look them up, the Leach House and this house. That house I lived in was a stagecoach stop. It was described as being one of the elite houses in the state of Kentucky, large house. It was taken down during the impoundment of Barren River State Park. Joe David Houchins lives right across from where this house was. The foundation is still there. Joe David said, I don't know why they did that. The water's never been close to this house. And so that's more government regulations that we face. But anyway, so the house is still there. He was an attorney, graduated from Center. You're related to General Lewis, I believe. Yeah. Judge Dixon is related to it. There are other, Perry's wife, Catherine, she's related to General Lewis. So there's still a lot of people here related to General Lewis in Kentucky. He was commander of the Orphan Brigade, we'll talk about just in a minute. Fought in many battles. Battle of Shiloh, he had 2 horses killed out from under him. The 3rd horse was shot and wounded. So he was up front in the battle. He fought at Stone River, Tullahoma, Chickamauga, many others. The Orphan Brigade fought in about 20 different battles in the Civil War. And he was elected to the House of Representatives in Kentucky 3 terms. 2 terms in the United States House of Representatives. 1 term as circuit judge here in Barren County. After the war, he was elected to the Court of Appeals, which was the highest court in Kentucky at that time. They didn't have a Supreme Court. He was elected to that court for 17 years. They rotated the Chief Justice each year. He was 3 times Chief Justice of that court. And so he owned the house, which is described here, down on South Green Street. Ricky and Lori Houchins own that property now. It's called the Roy Watkins home, 608 South Green Street. He lived in there, owned about 7 acres. Again, he was in the outskirts of Glasgow, and sold it on Broadway. That's part of Broadway now, and those streets back through there. General Lewis was probably the most influential person in Barren County during the 1800s. He did a lot of things, and he died in 1904. He's interred in the family plot. If you go in the cemetery, go in the old street over there, and go to the top of the hill. There's a monument there. Belongs to the Lewis family. It's the tallest monument in the cemetery, so just look for the tallest monument. There's where General Lewis is interred. Now, before we finish with Judge or the General Daugherty, let me share some information with you about the Orphan Brigade. Corporal A.C. Lewis. How many here have heard of A.C. Lewis? Okay. Amazing and sad story. He was born here in Barren County in 1843. At the age of 17 in 1861, he and Jack Lewis, age 14, General Lewis's son, left Glasgow going to Tennessee to join the Orphan Brigade, Kentucky Brigade. Got down there, they discovered how old Jack was, sent him home. AC was enlisted and was issued a rifle. Soon after that, the Battle of Shiloh took place. He went and fought in the Battle of Shiloh, distinguished himself, and was promoted to corporal real quickly by his actions, what he had done over there. He came back after that to Murfreesboro. General Braxton Bragg was the commanding general. How many know Braxton Bragg? And most historians, the worst general of the Civil War. He put a lot of soldiers into battle. They were killed, and he didn't value their lives. And so he's someone that might be debatable, period, but most people think he wasn't a very good general. But anyway, his family, his mother and sisters were starving. He was receiving letters. He was going to go back and help them. Told his commanding officer, probably a lieutenant or captain, he would be back. They tried to talk him out of leaving. He left, but was captured shortly, and they brought him back. They tried him, found him guilty of desertion, and the penalty was execution. General Bragg could have stopped the execution. There was 3 generals from Kentucky. All were generals of the Orphan Brigade. General Hanson, General Breckinridge, and General Lewis. They went to Bragg and tried to get him to stop the execution. He wouldn't do it. So anyway, on December the 26, 1862, in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, General Bragg had several brigades of the Orphan Brigade to come and witness the execution. I'll tell you why. General Bragg didn't like Kentuckians, and I'll tell you why just in a moment. But anyway, he had them come and witness the execution, and he said, he quoted, "You Kentuckians are too independent for the good of the Army. I'll shoot every one of you if I have to." And then, so General Breckinridge and General Hanson went up to Lewis just prior to the execution, and they consoled him there, and then they went back, and General Breckinridge got on his horse. The firing squad shot, and Breckenridge, passed out and fell off of his horse, according to history. And so they buried Corporal Lewis in a common grave in Murfreesboro, along with some other soldiers. I don't think they executed that day. But anyway, at a later date, when the war was over, they moved these graves. No one knows anything about where they moved them. So there were many of them, but they moved the graves. In 1996, someone here in Glasgow knew the story, so they talked to the cemetery here to see if they have a grave marker put up. So there's a marker there with his name on it in memory of a young Barren County. So on this map, if you go up there, it's just beyond where General Lewis is, and look at the grave. It's up there now, and just take a look at it, but the body is not there. There was KET did an educational show on that in 2008, and you can pull it up and watch that, but about him. And so he died in December of 62 at the age of 19. Sad story. Okay, and then let me talk about the Orphan Brigade just a minute before we go to the General Daugherty. The Orphan Brigade was organized as a Kentucky Brigade in Bowling Green, 1861. Many of them came from Barren County. About 250 men of the 3,500 were Barren Countyans. They joined. Many of the opposing generals in items I've read said the Orphan Brigade was the best brigade that the Confederates had. They fought in more battles than anyone. They were disciplined, not like some of the other groups, but they were highly valued for their military know-how. There was 4 generals that was commanders. General Breckenridge, General Hanson, who was killed in battle at the Battle of Stones River. General Benjamin Ham, he was killed in battle at the Battle of Chickamauga. He was Abraham Lincoln's brother-in-law. And then Brigadier General Joseph Lewis, who was the last brigade commander. They were all highly educated. From Center College, Transylvania, Princeton, Harvard, and there was a couple of the other colonels from Yale, West Point, and Virginia Military Academy. So they were highly educated leaders of this brigade. In the brigade, I told you about those Medal of Honor winners. There's 8 from Barren County. And in the total brigade, there were 67 military soldiers from the brigade of about 3,500 were awarded the Medal of Honor, Confederate Medal of Honor, which is very high compared with other units. As I told you there, of the 8 here, 5 of them were killed in battle. The Battle of Shiloh, Stone River, Chickamauga, and the Atlanta campaign resulted in 2,000 casualties of the Orphan Brigade. The casualties were killed in action, or if they died of a disease. There were more people in the Civil War died of disease than were killed in battle. There was about 300,000 killed in battle on both sides, and about 375 that died of disease for lack of medical attention. In those battles there, of the 250, Barren County had about 160 casualties. Terry and I had 2 of our relatives killed with the Orphan Brigade. James Gillock was killed in the Battle of Shiloh, and Sam Porter was killed in the Atlanta campaign. And so when the battles went on, the Orphan Brigade, there's 2 thoughts there how they were named. They really wasn't named the Orphan Brigade until after the war, Sam. And that name was given to them, some says, by General Bragg, that when the men were dying, and he went through and said, "You all are orphans." So sort of poking fun at them. And then the other one, Kentucky, as you remember, leaned more to the Union. And a lot of people didn't think the Orphan Brigade, the Kentucky Brigade, could return to Kentucky until the war was over. So none of the soldiers came back to Kentucky until after the Civil War for the Orphan Brigade. And when in 1864, less than 3 years after the brigade was founded, it was disbanded. When they disbanded it, out of the 3,500, there was only 500 left of the brigade. It's touching to me when you read these things, how many people that were lost or wounded or different things. And out of the 500, I read there was only 50 in the whole brigade that wasn't wounded or had died of disease. There was only 50 remaining that didn't have some kind of injury with them. In the end, there was 220 casualties of the original 250 from Barren County. Again, these are the ones that were sick. So they existed for less than 3 years, but a heavy toll of men was lost during that period of time, and they were considered the elite of the elite. They had a squad of 10 men that was organized, 2 from Barren County, a sniper squad. General Breckinridge, when he was vice president, he received some gifts from an English gun company. Was really state-of-the-art rifles. They used them for contests in England for 1,000 yards. So if you had a gun was accurate for 1,000 yards, that was something to behold. But they had 10 guns. They issued it to this brigade, 2 from Barren County, and they were did a wonderful job of finding the enemy. One of the opposing generals said, if you find one of these rifles, whoever's carrying it, kill him on the spot, because they've done so much damage to the Union. Okay, now, let's just, we're going to finish. We've got General Russell Daugherty. I'm sorry, we have one more that I didn't. Better not forget this one. I've got it. First cousins are here tonight, so I better not forget this. This is General John L. Smith. That's my wife Barbara and Billy Houchins' first cousin. He was Brigadier General in the Air Force, and also after he retired from the Air Force, he joined the Kentucky Air National Guard. He was during the Vietnam War. He flew C-130 aircraft, and very likely he was one of the pilots who was delivering Agent Orange. He never told me that, or Billy, I don't know whether he ever told you that about what I've read, and he probably was doing that. But anyway, when he came out, he joined the Kentucky Air National Guard, flying the reconnaissance planes out of Louisville. In the 70s and 80s, does anyone remember any sonic booms here in Glasgow? Anybody remember those? I do.
Yeah, I do.
This was cousin J.L. He didn't tell anybody that until he was out. He said he probably would have been court-martialed and anyone found out about it. But he was in training. He'd come over Barren County. Occasionally, he would. I don't know what the speed is on a sonic boom, but he would have a sonic boom come through and leave his calling card, Judge. And but anyway, he was appointed Assistant Adjutant General of Air of the last few years. He died in August of 1996 and is interred at the Zachary Taylor Military Cemetery in Louisville. But he's he used to come here a lot, and Billy, you was around him a lot. And, okay, we're going to conclude with General Daugherty. General Daugherty still has a lot of relatives here in Glasgow. Anyone here tonight? I thought they were going to be here because they told me they were coming. Jimmy Nelson, he's a second cousin. Miriam Gibson, Buddy Underwood. They're all second cousins of General Daugherty. And General Daugherty started out at a very young age. He was recruited by the, help me out, the Cavalry, 135th Cavalry here in Glasgow, the Cavalry Brigade. And he was recruited as a teenager, played the bugle. He was quite a musician. And he was only 15 or 16 years old when he joined the local cavalry. And he was, so he knew military, and then he went to college at Western, graduated from Western. And when he got out, he went to work for the FBI. How many of you knew that? He was, I've read where he knew J. Edgar Hoover, who was head of the FBI at the time. But he was in the FBI a short period of time until the war broke out, and then he stayed in the, which was the Army Air Corps at that time. Y'all bear with me just a moment. While I'm looking here, there's a sign-up sheet in the back. If anyone wants, I've got 40 pages. I'm not going over everything I've got. I'm concluding here, but if anybody might want a copy of this, just leave me your email address back there and I'll get it to you. Past my bedtime. Okay, General Daugherty, as we all know, he was the Commander-in-Chief of the Strategic Air Command, which was in Omaha. He, over that group, he supervised or was commander of 152,000 Air Corps, also over 1,200 bombers, strategic air bombers, the B-52s mainly, and 3,000 land-based ballistic missiles. So he had quite a responsibility. He was up until that time he was the second in command of the European Command. His son-in-law was later on was top commander, but he was second in command over there. He was a command pilot. He didn't fly in World War II. He only had 29 combat hours in the Korean War. Had 39 years of military service. He flew while in the Air Force. I didn't know the Air Force had this many planes. He flew 74 different aircraft while he was in the Air Force. And his son verified that. I called him and asked him, he said that was correct. And he was promoted general in May of '72. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, he was stationed at the Pentagon. His son told me during 2 weeks, he didn't come home for 2 weeks during that crisis. And he was a colonel at that time, and said that he reviewed reports and reported it to his general, who in turn took them to the president and commanders there, the chief of staff. And so he never talked to the president, he said, but he did make suggestions on what to do during that middle time. His military legacy, family legacy, is unbelievable. His son-in-law was a 4-star general. You know about him, talked about him. He had twin sons, Ernie. One of them came here and spoke to the Chamber of Commerce a few years ago. Had twin sons, they both were in the Air Force. Mark died at the age of 38 of cancer. He was a lieutenant colonel. His brother, Brian died of, he was lieutenant colonel. Mark, he's still living. He's retired. He was a full colonel. They had a first cousin who was a full colonel in the Air Force, the name of Joseph Daugherty. Joseph Daugherty, a lot of you remember him. He graduated from high school, graduated from West Point. His sisters were Margie Underwood and Jeanette Nelson, Jimmy Nelson's mother, and Buddy and Miriam's mother was Joseph Daugherty's. But let me just tell you a little bit about him. He flew C-123s in Vietnam, was shot down in Vietnam, and was rescued immediately, awarded the Purple Heart. Later, he served in the NATO staff in Europe, and then he concluded in the Pentagon. He was in the Pentagon the last few years of service. In civilian life, he was appointed director of the University of Kentucky ROTC Air Force program. Was up there many years. He holds a world record. I think it's still there. He always wanted to do this. When he retired, he did this. He had a Cessna airplane. He touched down in all 48 contiguous states in 5 days, 5 hours, 11 minutes, which was a record that he still holds as far as I can tell. So he passed away in 2011. He married, a lot of you know, Shirley Smith, who was Fred Smith's daughter, who is the first cousin of Diane Sawyer. So a lot of you know that family, who he was. But the other officers in that family, daughter-in-law, Kim Daughter, she was a retired colonel herself. He had a grandson, Captain Mark Daugherty, in the United States Marine Corps. So how would you like to be sitting around Thanksgiving dinner and talking to that group? And, I'd say the grandson, the captain, probably didn't get any words in, did he, Mitchell? With all those guys, but quite a legacy, family legacy of military people. 3 things he had in common, or these people had in common. Tennessee Ernie Ford, all of you remember him, Dinah Shore, and Billy Vaughn. They all were lifetime friends of General Daugherty. General Daugherty, of course, met Billy Vaughn when he was here in Glasgow. They played in the band together, were in the cavalry together. He met Dinah Shore when she came to Glasgow. He formed a band during his college days at Western. She came to Bowling Green to sing in the band with General Daugherty. So they were together in the band. And then Tennessee Ernie Ford was his bombardier in a B-29 bomber. Said he was the best bombardier he'd ever had. And later, when he was, General Daugherty presented the award, Tennessee Ernie Ford was there to present it to him. And so they were all lifetime friends. All these people had #1 hits in their careers. And so that's amazing that he knew all of those people. He was, General Daugherty was, he had 6 honorary doctor's degrees that he bestowed on him. He served on over 30 boards of different organizations. When he retired, he became executive director of the U.S. Air Force retirees for many years. So he's continued to serve. He was a people's person for being a general. Usually, Jerry, you was an officer. How many in here were officers in Judge Dickinson were officers? Usually the officers were buttholes. Excuse my language. Is that right? Were you ever accused of that, Jerry? But General Daugherty wasn't. He was a people person. I'll give you a couple of instances here. Every night when he would leave his office, he would stop and the staff would meet there. He would tell them, "Good night, good people. I could not do this job without you." That was an everyday affair that he said to them. I read a couple of his comments in his obituaries. There was two that stood out. One was a young officer in one of his buildings he was in. I'm not sure if he was a general at the time. I think he was. But he met this young man in the hall one day. And General Daugherty stopped him and said, "Who are you? Tell me your name. Tell me about your family." He had just had a small child. This guy said 3 or 4 months later he met him again. General Daugherty stopped him, called his child by name, and said, "How's John doing?" He remembered who he was, and so he took everything personal. Another time, General Daugherty had a staff car driving to an important meeting. On up in front of him, he saw a guy sitting on the curb up there. That looked a little odd being on the base. So General Daugherty had the driver stop. He got out, went over to him. He had gotten up to salute him and said, "Could I talk to you a moment?" He said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Let's sit back down here and talk." He sat on the curb, and the guy was having problems at home. And General Daugherty sat there and consoled him about it. This guy, in his obituary, sent a comment about it. So he was a very personal person, and not like some of the others that we've had, some of the other officers we've had. At his funeral, he buried at Arlington with his son and wife. His wife is buried with him, his son just a few grades away. During the funeral, his pallbearers, he had 5 4-star generals and 1 3-star general was his pallbearers. And when they concluded the ceremony, a B-1 bomber flew over, recognizing who he was and giving the compliments of being a general. So that's the story I have, and I don't know any questions. We'll get out of here. Anybody have any questions or comments? Time to go home, eat ice cream.
Amen.
All right, thank you all for coming.